This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
They did it, Ricky. They did it. The Chicago Cubs are World Series champions. How does that sound? Just like, I can't really put it into words right now, the feelings that I have.
It hasn't hit home yet.
The Chicago Cubs are World Series champions, Ricky, and it happened after a 108-year drought. Since 1945 is the last time they were in the World Series. Coming down, they were down 3-1, coming back to win it. This story, Ricky, it's bigger than all of us. And you talk about it. I want to open up the show. By the way, welcome in, my friends. This is Behind the Pen. My name is Mike Rankin, alongside Ricky Widmer, and we're talking Cubs today because this is the eve. No. Eve is before the
post show.
The Boxing Day of my Christmas, which is the Chicago Cubs winning the World Series. Well, the best day of my life.
It was your birthday. But
it was my birthday.
But did they technically win it on your birthday?
Yeah, they did. They finished the game before midnight.
Okay,
I believe.
It was like
Don't quote me on that.
It was like 11:20. It was like 11:20, and I did think in the back of my head, I'm like, man, wouldn't it be kind of funny if they won it like 12:01?
Yeah, but let's be honest, if the game lasted more than past midnight, they would have lost because it wasn't my birthday anymore, and that was the mojo.
Because I was thinking about that during the rain delay. I'm like,
you were thinking about me, Ricky?
It's gonna go past 12 o'clock.
Well,
and then Mike can't get...
I was the only one with a birthday on November 2nd in Chicago.
Well, of
who's a
course,
Cubs
that's
fan.
how it works, right?
Right, exactly. So that's what I'm saying. All right, I just want to say this, by the way. This whole entire show is just going to be dedicated to the Chicago Cubs. We're going to be talking Cubs reaction of this entire posting, this entire season, off season, everything Chicago Cubs. Now, I don't know how long
you called it.
I did.
You called it.
I did. But, I mean, it's not that huge of a call because...
No. I thought about that today. I went back and I didn't
I'm just trying to be humble, but I did call.
I didn't listen to the whole thing, but I'm like, I have to go back and listen to that segment because I remember we titled it, "The Chicago Cubs are going to win the 2016 World Series."
You know what I wanted to do, Ricky, too, by the way? And whoever was listening, look forward to this. I want to create like a sound bite, just about 10, 15 minutes long of all behind the pen Cubs talk. And I want to just put it together and then see how it goes. And it culminates to this.
This is
euphoria.
The greatest day of my life.
It was unbelievable,
Ricky.
This is the
greatest.
Game.
Like last night when we won it, the way I described it was, this is going to be the greatest moment in my life until I get married.
Well, that a boy.
Until I get married. Like, that's how important this is.
This is probably the best moment I will ever experience, next to maybe the birth of my child.
Equally as important. For me, you kind of got to get married before you get to the child part.
Sure. I mean, like,
hopefully.
You could get married more than once, but you could probably not. Yeah, for your first child is, irreplaceable.
Just like
the first. Okay, now, all right, by the way, Patreons, guys, become a Patreon. Patreon.com/Most Valuable Podcast. Become one of those things I just said and give us some money. Just flat out give us some money. We'll prepare you for this. This is what you get at Most Valuable Podcast. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Most Valuable Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Most Valuable Pod. I'm at Rankin906. He's at Ricky Widmer. Be sure to check out our content. But listen, Ricky, we're going back, right? We were talking about these moments, and it's special, right? And it's special. And people, I understand. Like, if you're not maybe a Cubs fan, you don't necessarily understand it to the extent of Cubs fans.
It had to end like this, though.
But, yes, I want to talk about the World Series. I want to talk about the outcome. I want to talk about the lead up to the World Series, the NLCS, the NLDS, even the season, all of everything, everything. And going back to the start, I felt like the stars were aligned this year for them. Everything was going their way. Now let's begin the offseason, right? They had this fantastic offseason, Ricky. They get John Lackey. They steal John Lackey from the Cardinals, their second best WAR player, right?
We bring in Jason Hayward.
Wins above replacement. They win the Jason Hayward sweepstakes. They don't just sign him, they win him. On the year after that, they win the John Lester sweepstakes. That's two prime free agents they were able to win. And say what you want about Hayward, his production at the plate, garbage this year, absolutely rightfully so. You have plenty of reason to bash him for that. But the value that his game offers to this Chicago Cubs team specifically this year, and we saw it in the World Series, it's invaluable. Then you have Ben Zobrist. By the way, had the go ahead at the time run,
back-to-back World Series champion Ben Zobrist too.
How about it? How about it? And you talk about the veteran leadership, and you bring in a David Ross, and it's his retirement season, and the whole offseason really culminates, right? You're right. You feel really good about this Chicago team going in, right? You have Schwarber, and you're going to probably see Almora at some point this year. You have a set lineup. You got Soler. It's like, whoa, this is pretty damn good right now. I feel pretty good. Then all of a sudden, Baltimore Orioles can't lock down a deal with Dexter Fowler, and he shows up at the end of February before spring training.
It wasn't that they couldn't lock down a deal. They did have a deal in place. It was pretty much locked down, but then it was kind of like at the last second, Fowler had this change of heart and was like, fuck it, I want to go back to Chicago for one more year to win it with these guys.
Right, and that was what he said, right? But what I think what fell through with Baltimore, yes, it was his conscience making the decision to come to Chicago. I believe it was an option after the first year in the contract with Baltimore that they weren't willing to give. They weren't willing to budge on that deal. I think they wanted 3 years guaranteed, and Fowler was like, nah, man, I want to opt out possibly. You know what I mean?
So if he has a phenomenal year, why not?
Well, of course. And you know what? He felt like he was getting shafted a little bit in the market, especially coming off a good season in Chicago after 2015. So then he earned his keep this year with the Chicago Cubs.
He gonna get paid.
Absolutely. No, this offseason, I'm guessing 4 years, 70, 80 million coming his way. That's for damn sure. And he earned it. And this is his time to cash in. Absolutely. But overall, yeah, so that was just like the nice little bow. And then the expectations started rolling in. And the Cubs got off to a historically dominant start. And it didn't end.
We had one lull this season.
Right, and that was just around the All-Star break just before it, and a little bit in July, too, when they went 5-15 during a stretch.
And being a Cub fan, it was naturally like the sky is falling, and we're not going to do anything, and we're probably going to lose the Central, even though we never were going to lose the Central. That's just how you think as a Cub fan. But this entire season leading up to the playoffs was, I felt like it was the best way I could describe it is through Grandpa Ross. It was like one big party. Yeah, you got some downtime where we had that one stretch where we thought the sky was falling, but overall this was one big party.
They were so good this year, Ricky, that they clinched home field advantage throughout the playoffs before teams clinched their division. And this is in mid-September that they clinched their division, and they ended with what, a 17-game lead over the Cardinals to end the the season. This is unprecedented what the Chicago Cubs team was able to accomplish. They were literally figuratively, not literally, figuratively in coast mode from pretty much mid-August till the end of the season. Maybe even the beginning of August. Because they established themselves as a playoff team, and once they got to the playoffs, they came through in every single facet.
They came through, though, but you look at the playoffs that we had to go through, we basically, the way I looked at it now looking back, we basically had to go through murderous row.
Of course.
We had to go against the streak. We had to go against Clayton Kershaw and a Dodgers team that was coming off of, hey, we just beat the guys that everyone was predicting to play you guys in the NLCS, who has, you have Kershaw, you had Jensen, who was really good against us. Oh, and then we had to go up against a Indians team that was fighting a streak like us, had only lost, one game before the World Series?
Yep.
And then you also, your manager had never lost in a World Series before this year.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, starting with the Giants, right? You had the Giants team that, in my opinion, was built to beat the Cubs, but you look back at the NLDS, and my God, the comeback that they made in Game 4, down 3 in the 9th inning, scoring 4, and eventually winning that game. And that was against Bumgarner, too.
And who all starts it?
I'm sorry, that was the game after Bumgarner. But it was.
But who started that run? The MVP.
It was such clutch performances by so many people. You had the Bryant homer in Game 3 to tie it in the 9th, and that just
barely cleared the wall.
Right, and that gives you the hope. But they were able to overcome Madison Bumgarner, arguably the most dominant playoff pitcher that definitely our generation has ever seen. And then you move on to a 7-game series against Clayton Kershaw, who you have to see multiple times, who you overcome multiple times. And given, Clayton Kershaw has his struggles in the playoffs, but we didn't see that same Clayton Kershaw this season in the playoffs that we're used to seeing because he was dominant. And I know like they were giving him comparisons to these most dominant pitchers in the history of baseball, but he looked like the Clayton Kershaw we're accustomed to seeing in the regular season. That's dominant.
And not only him, Rich Hill came out and pitched phenomenally, which I was not expecting.
And that's another thing,
Maybe
too.
he just reared it up for playing a former team of his, but that's what he did.
Well, going back to Game 4, they faced Matt Moore and couldn't do squat for 8 innings because
and then
what?
Bucci pulls Matt Moore. I don't know why.
In
but
favor
thank you.
of the worst bullpen
Thank you.
next to the Cincinnati Reds in the entire MLB. Yes. Thank you very much. Especially in that situation because they had their problems against left-handed pitching throughout the entire playoffs, and we saw it. Against Kershaw, they struggled in their first time seeing, but they saw him again. They were able to put together really good at-bats, and that's what this team did all season. It starts with Theo Epstein. It's the brain trust of this group that totally, completely was. They were so transparent about everything that they wanted to do. They laid it out at the start of their regime in 2011. Listen,
I have a plan.
We
Bear
have
with me.
a long way to go, right? And you know what they say? Like, okay, we're not going to give you a cookie because remember back in the day, and this was around too when fans were like, why the hell is Rick Renteria getting fired after one season? We got to give him a chance. Like, what? You just got Joe Madden. But they were saying like, whoa, go get Prince Fielder. You need to go get Prince Fielder. Sign Cole Hamels. Give him all this money. Theo Epstein said, we're not going to give you cookies, right? We're going to give you the whole meal. And my God, am I full, Ricky Widmer? My God, am I full? This is unbelievable right now, this feeling that I have.
And that's one thing that I did find interesting is naturally with this, when it comes to Theo, with this team, you're going to compare it to the Red Sox team because two curses.
Naturally.
Theo, the curse breaker. But those teams were so differently built. This team, young talent. I want to say the average age of this team is 24, 25? Not even?
Probably 26.
Not even, maybe?
But you're talking about the core players. Yeah. It's Anthony Rizzo, who's the oldest, along with Jason Hayward at 26 years old. It's unbelievable.
That Red Sox team was built off of free agency. They had an average age of 31 and a half.
Sure, and there was a different style that they were playing. No, absolutely. I'm with you. But just going back to the Theo Epstein thing, and they completely they explained, right? And they executed, and we saw the transitions from irrelevancy to a legitimate organization. And you brought up the core, right? You talked about the younger players. Looking ahead to next year, guess what we have to look forward to, Ricky, as fans? Kyle Schwarber.
Coming back
again.
Schwarber. Or as I call him, Schwar Daddy.
Babe Ruth. He's not going anywhere for a long time.
And why would you?
No, I'm saying
why would
because
you?
He's under control.
Yeah.
Anthony Rizzo just signed a long-term contract. He's not going anywhere for a long time. Chris Bryant, extra year of control because they held him back for 15 games back in 2015. He's going to be here for a long time. Baez, I'm not done yet.
I know you're
I'm not done yet. Addison Russell. Wilson Contreras.
CJ in the bullpen?
Carl Edwards Jr., who emerged as
who's a year younger than I am.
How
and
about
I was
his
like, holy
performance
shit,
in
I could
Game
be
7?
In the World
That's what I'm saying.
Right now.
Jason Hayward's 26. Albert Almora, 21, 22.
Jason Hayward's really 26?
Exactly.
He's my age?
Jason
he looks like he's way older than I am.
Is still a young cat, but it feels like he's been in the league for 10 years. And he acts like a veteran. But it just gives me chills, Ricky. And Kyle Hendricks, by the way. Kyle Hendricks is along with those younger players.
Pulled out too soon.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. But I'm just, this is a team with a bunch of core players who haven't even come close to their primes yet. This is their first, second, third years in the league. Besides Rizzo, and Travis Wood are the two players who have saw the
100 loss and the 100
experienced the transition process from 2012 to 2016. They've been here for it all, and the growth we've seen from Anthony Rizzo, it gives me chills, man. It gives me goosebumps.
Well, I mean,
everything about it.
Speaking about Rizzo, the best moment, and I'm so happy they A, caught it with a microphone, and B, showed us, was the moment when he was talking to Ross, and he's like, I'm overcome with emotion.
Yep.
He said, I'm a glass case. Like, I'm a basket case right now.
And Ross is like, imagine 3 outs before the ninth inning, you know?
Well, I'm going to get to that in a second. Right. But with that moment, it was one of those things where it let A, it let you in, but B, it was so relatable because I'm like, holy shit, these guys, like, when we think of pro athletes, we just think they're machines and they're above the pressure. And it's like, oh, how could you let that happen here? This, and that. There's an intense amount of pressure that comes with playing not just playing for a championship, but you're on the Chicago Cubs who haven't won in over 100 years. I'm going to say it, best fans in baseball. And you feel like you want to give back to those fans. And that's what it let that into. And then the second part of Rossi, well, hey, just wait till the ninth inning when we're up by 3. Hashtag prophecy right there.
Well,
Prophet Ross.
That too is the importance of David Ross to this ball club more so. And then that's why he's going to be around next year as well. Maybe not as a player, but as a consultant or a coach.
Hitting coach.
Something. Maybe. I mean,
sorry, Holly.
Oh, yeah. Hollingsworth is whatever. But you talked about the human element and the relatable factors. These players, and this is, okay, now before I get into this, let me say, how about the celebration in Wrigleyville? And we see it. It's still going on as we speak. Literally people, as far as the eye can see, crowding the streets around Wrigley, and it's just all, this is something, this baseball town, it's something that really no other city has seen before. Maybe Boston can relate a little bit, but just the outpouring and the community feel that you have around Wrigley Field. And I say that because, and we talk about the human element and the relatable factors within, what Anthony Rizzo showed with David Ross. These players are living in the neighborhoods that they're playing at. Theo Epstein walks from his house to the ballpark every single day. You see Jake Arrieta at the local Walgreens buying a prescription for his kid. This is real life. People are going to Ben Zobrist's house on Halloween trick-or-treating. This is real. And this is what happens when you have such a tight-knit organization that has high-character athletes that makes it a point to bring in these guys for cohesion. And for people who say that character and clubhouse philosophies and etiquette or whatever, cohesion doesn't matter, look at this 2016 Chicago Cubs team. And let's talk about, can we just talk about Game 7? Because I can't not anymore.
Can we talk a little bit about this World Series in general?
Yeah, we can. But I want to start with Game 7, Ricky, because I'm about to jump out of my skin. You had the rain delay, and we're going to jump. We'll recap the whole thing, but I want to jump just to
the rain delay. You want to go straight to the end,
let's go to the desserts. Continuing with my point and the whole cohesion thing. Jason Hayward sucked ass all year at the plate, right? And he was pretty much irrelevant in the time. He even got benched in the World Series in the most important.
He had a few good defensive plays.
No, but I'm saying he got benched for Jorge Soler at home. And then he comes back in Game 7 in the locker room and during the rain delay and has this speech and says, "This is who we are all season. Don't forget that. Don't forget who we are. We'll be fine. Just this is us. We can do this." And I think that rain delay was I think it was just a call from the baseball gods saying, all right, let's regroup and win the World Series, please, this next inning. So, we can go to bed because I have to get up for work tomorrow. But I'm just like, you know what I mean? You have that feel. And Jason Hayward has this speech, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 comes up in the top of the 10th in a must win for more reasons than one, and they come through. And it was just such a storybook ending for one of the craziest games I have ever witnessed in my over 18 plus years of watching baseball. And I say 18 plus years, and I'm one of the most diehard Cubs fans you can ever meet, if we ever do meet in person. I love the Cubs as much as the next guy. And I'm only 22 years old. I'm thinking about the generations who are 50, 60, 70, 80 years old who really haven't witnessed something like this ever.
Well, and that's the thing for me. The reason I'm going to actually take what you're saying and kind of go off a little bit with Game 7 and then get back to it. The reason why this championship is so important to me, like, yes, I've seen the Bulls win in my life. I've seen the Bears go to the Super Bowl, seen the White Sox win a championship in my life, seen the Blackhawks win championships. But with my teams, the reason why this one is so special is this is like my team. Like, Yeah, I'm a Bulls fan. Yeah, I kind of like the Hawks. Yeah, I'm a Vikings fan. But when it comes to the Cubs,
it's on another level.
Like if I had to pick one, you said, Ricky, you can't have Bulls, Vikings, Cubs because those are the main teams I cheer for. The Hawks I'll watch and I'll cheer for, but I don't really consider myself a diehard because I got into it when we won it. But if I had to pick between those three, I'd say Cubs hands down, and I would throw the other two away because that's how much I love this team. And that's the thing with Cub fans. It's not about. I've heard the debate of, oh, you're 26, oh, you're 21, oh, you're 24. You can't talk. You haven't been waiting that long. Well, it's not about the years that we've waited. It's about, and I'm not saying we're not the only ones who experience this, but it's how much we love this team even through the bad management and the bad players that we had to deal with.
We are not ignorant Cubs fans. We appreciate the history of the Chicago Cubs. We understand that in 1945 there was this quote-unquote curse of the Billy Goat, right, put on this team, and that they haven't been to the World Series since. We understand Ron Santo, the Black Cat of 69. We understand 84. We understand 89. We understand Ryan Sandberg, Billy Williams, Ernie Banks, all these other people associated with this franchise. Harry Carey, obviously. We understand. We understand. And we didn't live through it, of course, but we lived through a lot. And let me tell you, in the 90s, they were a bad team. They had one good season in 98. That was with Sosa. They squeaked into the wild card, lost in the first round. That was it. Then you move on to the early 2000s. They were pretty competitive, but really not realistically a playoff team until 2003, where they made this crazy run, and we don't even have to revisit that outcome. But right now it's irrelevant because the Chicago Cubs are World Series champions in 2016. We saw in 2007, 2008, two teams that had to win then and now because they were built for then and now. But if they weren't, if they lost, which they did, they got swept in back-to-back years, they're going to be screwed because of the way this franchise was run. You look at what Theo Epstein and his impact has been on this franchise. He has conquered the baseball world.
In Theo, we trust.
Theo Epstein is the king of baseball. You talk about a guy who breaks a curse in Boston and wins 2 championships in Boston and comes to Chicago.
Can I let you in on something? Then this is from my own personal experience. Of course, to me, it's going to mean something for you guys out there. You're probably going to be like, I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm going to tell you. Anyways, in college, used to be a radio DJ for my college, and we used to do a sports talk show. And at the end of the sports talk show, we would do a segment called The Shootout. And how it would work is I was the host, so I was kind of like the judge, and the other two, we would have a topic. You give your side, you give your side. I kind of decide who wins the shootout that day. And it was October 28th of 2010, I want to say. 2010, 2011. And Brandon Swanson was one of those guys on the show with me. The other guy's name was AJ.
Is this the Theo Epstein signing?
This is.
So it would be
Theo
2011.
signed.
Before 2011.
Theo signed.
The offseason of 2011.
Yep. Theo signed. And I remember the two sides. AJ was a Sox fan. So was Brandon. But Brandon was on the side of Theo was a good signing. And just the 2 points of how differently they were to now, where Brandon ended his point by saying, he's like, I don't want to say it, but he's like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to say it. Cubs win the World Series within 5 years. Guess what this season was?
That 5th year
was number 5.
Absolutely.
This one was number 5, and it was actually the 26th of October, 2011 is when we put it up.
Yeah.
And on the other side for AJ, the one thing, because I re-listened to it, and the one thing he said that made me smile, because it couldn't have been further from the truth, his exact quote was, Theo Epstein is not a Band-Aid for your problems. Guess what? He is. We're World Series champions.
He's not a Band-Aid. He is the
entire...
He's the
anti-ointment.
He is the entire gauze and cast and everything that repairs a broken anything, because Theo Epstein came in, turned a dysfunctional franchise into a legitimate contender, and he will be here for another roughly... When you look back, the entirety of his existence...
Sean, who's in here now just listening to us, showed me a text. He's the chemotherapy.
Okay.
He's the chemotherapy for the Cubs.
There you go. See, and the cancer went into remission.
But the one thing, like getting back to this Game 7, looking back on it, it had to end like this. It couldn't be easy. Like being down.
That was a storybook, man.
Being down 1-3, losing 2 of the 3 games in Chicago, having to go back on the road with our 3 best pitchers, with our ace in Game 7, and then you get to Game 7, you get a 5-1 lead, you lose that lead.
You blow 2 leads.
Fucking Rajay Davis, who Sean bashed the entire playoffs, hits a game-tying home run where I'm sitting there going,
it's happening again.
Fuck, why did we leave Chapman in? We wore him out. All I'm going to hear for the next X amount of days is how we wore Chapman out. We shouldn't have pitched him too much. And then the 10th inning happens.
Yeah. And the rain delay, I'm telling you, it's a storybook. This is the most historic event in the history of all sports, and I'm not trying to be dramatic. This is legitimately.
I can't wait for the 30 for 30.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be fantastic,
and
of course.
The thing that I hope they do with the 30 for 30 when they talk about the series, and I only got this idea from listening to the Dan Patrick show this morning. I want the not entirely, but when we get to this series, I want a little bit of that Cleveland side. I want to know what's going through Rajay Davis's head when he hit that home run.
I'm sure. We'll see. But this is more. I'm not even thinking about that right now, and I'm excited for that. Honestly, the first thing I thought of.
Can't wait.
And I've been waiting for this moment. I am ordering the Sports Illustrated package that has all the DVD sets and the commemorative stuff that comes along with your team winning the World Series. Because as soon as your team wins the World Series, that's the first commercial that comes on TV. It's like, buy this now, and I will.
I told my mom this yesterday. And I was kind of talking to Sean about this. I want to say it was during it was right after we won the NLCS, because that's when the stuff came out. Before the World Series, I wanted to buy the We Came to Rain hoodie. I wanted to buy the basic Cub hat with the World Series logo on the side. I wanted to buy all this stuff, but I didn't, and I couldn't.
Whatever.
Well, I couldn't because. To me, I didn't want to buy the stuff,
and then they lose.
Especially that We Came to Rain, Came to Rain hoodie. Yeah, everyone else is like, Ricky, you're looking into it too much. I cannot wear that hoodie.
I know. I think a lot of fans would.
Now I'm telling my mom, I'm like, I'm buying this. I'm buying
of course.
This. My mom's like, great, Ricky's getting a whole new wardrobe just because the Cubs won the World Series.
So I just want to say that let's kind of run through this World Series real quick, and then we'll end it with some positive thoughts, because this entire thing is just I can't even put it into words. The feeling that so many people are experiencing just a day after it's happened. Honestly, I'm still processing it.
The best moment was this was like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock actually, when I went to bed, and I opened up Twitter, and my Twitter hadn't been opened for 5 hours. So 5 hours around that point was when Hendricks got pulled out of the game.
Yeah.
So that's where my timeline started. And I'm scrolling up to the top. But as I'm scrolling, I'm kind of slowing down because I'm kind of reading some of them. Looking back in hindsight, how many tweets I saw from my followers of, fuck Joe Madden, fire Joe Madden's a bum, why'd you take out Kyle Hendricks? Joe Madden's a bum. This and that.
Everybody was ready to jump on him.
I'm like, holy shit, we won.
No, I know. And he got lucky. I'm telling you, in Game 7, he got lucky that things work out for him, because I'm telling you what, those were some questionable managerial decisions going back to the beginning of the NLDS.
On that Rays team, it didn't.
Sure, but what I'm trying to say is this is how he's been throughout the entire play, and we're talking about the way he managed his bullpen. I think personally he made a lot of good calls, more good calls than bad, I would say, but the bad calls almost were catastrophic. And you look at the way
he lost trust in some guys.
Almost all of them. But you look at the way he constructed the lineup throughout the progression of the playoffs, and I thought he did a really good job, especially in Cleveland when you got Schwarber back and you put him at 2. But going back to this game,
well, that's just getting more bats for him.
Sure, and you want and they put him lower in the lineup just to touch on Schwarber real quick is because he's coming back from a career-ending knee injury. You don't know what he's going to have. Yeah. He had like 7 plate appearances going back to April whatever, and you're going to have him batting 5th in the playoffs, and he proves that he could hit. So hell yeah, you're going to move him up.
For 6 and 7, it was the same. It was the same thing. It reminded me of what was it earlier in the season when it was like, fuck it, Bryant's going to bat 2. Well, why is he going to bat 2?
And that's the thing, too. That's another conversation that the 2-hitter is more valuable than the 3. But anyway, looking back at this World Series, Ricky, you have Game 1 where Lester kind of struggles. And they had a chance to win that game.
Basically, we lost it in the first.
Just to put it plainly, and then you move on to Game 2, and they overcame Trevor Bauer, who wasn't...
Jake Arrieta was on fire.
Wasn't too impressive there. And then you continue on in the series. Josh Tomlin, you run into that buzzsaw. They couldn't hit a curveball, and that was the story of the entire playoffs.
That was the worst game to watch. That was the 1-0 game. The Hendricks one. That was the Hendricks game.
It was Kluber who pitched Game 1, right? Yeah, because he was unbelievably electric.
It was Bauer, then it was Tomlin.
That's what I thought, okay.
Then we had Kluber again, and I want to say the Game 3 was that 1-0 one, where it was...
Oh, yeah, Hendricks made one mistake, it was the solo homer.
It was that solo home run.
And then he had a chance late in the game.
And the thing that killed me most about that game is Javi fucking Baez. I love you, Javi. Javi's been one of my favorite players. Like, these playoffs, you get attached to players... I got fucking attached to Javi.
He's a co-MVP. You should.
Co-MVP, fucking charming as hell on the field. Like, that smile just lights up your
Ricky,
television.
We know you love him.
But you have runners on second and third. All you need is a base hit, and you're trying to swing for the fences. And I get it. That's Javi. I get it. That's what you're getting with Javi.
That wasn't the thing that was most frustrating is that he wasn't the Javi we were accustomed to seeing in the playoffs because he was shortening up, putting together good at-bats. He was laying off the curveball in the dirt.
And then he just threw it all at the window.
And then all of a sudden, he started swinging wildly again and chasing pitches. He wanted to do too much. I think he put too much pressure on himself. I'll get to Game 7. But anyway, then you lose Game 4.
Kluber.
You're down 3-1. And you're sitting there like, oh, man, like this is the worst. But then at the same time...
I thought it was over.
You did?
I did.
Because I didn't. I felt like this Chicago Cubs team, no matter how bad it looked, it was inevitable for them to come back and win. And my thought, until it was over, it was, until they lose, they're going to win. And it just kept happening.
I'm going to say this. I thought it would... When I say I thought it was over... Of course, I watched the game still, like, thinking we're going to win.
Well, you're discouraged down 3-1.
But I was so discouraged.
And the Indians are a good team.
And the one thing that I did, and I did it with... I tried to do it the best of my ability, I'll be honest, in the World Series, is I want to say it was John Lester who said this to the media to tell us, the fans, don't get discouraged, don't get excited. Grind with us pitch by pitch, out by out.
Let us, fans are going to be fans regardless.
But with these last 3 games, I did that, and it was fucking phenomenal.
Well, because you had faith in this team. You understand what this team was all about. They don't quit. They just come through time and time again. You have this veteran leadership. Then you move on into Game 5, the impressive win at Wrigley Field, huge win. Moving it back to Cleveland, give yourself a chance. And I feel like that transition from Wrigley to Cleveland was so big because of the DH, and it helped the Cubs line up so much because you get Schwarber in there for regular at-bats.
And just the kind of switch in my mental mind from 5 to 6, I was discouraged going into Game 5. Game 6, I was so annoying. My mom hated me because I was basically Kevin Millar Jr. going, put us to bed tonight. Don't let us win tonight.
So they come out.
Because anything can happen in Game 7.
They come out. Addison Russell has the grand slam. They're up. They ended up winning by a lot in Game 6. Then you move on to Game 7 for the storybook ending.
It only seems fitting that the last 2 grand slams in the World Series are Chicago guys, right?
Of course. So then you get to Game 7. You have this unbelievable matchup on the mound. You're looking forward to
the aces.
Kyle Hendricks.
Yeah, the aces.
Kyle Hendricks and Corey Kluber. For the 3rd time, the Cubs had to face Corey Kluber, and that's something to be said. They were able to overcome that. They were able to overcome Clayton Kershaw, Mad Bum, Corey Kluber. These guys are Cy Young's best pitchers in the game. Corey Kluber could very well win the AL Cy Young this year.
And Hendricks is going to win the NL.
I really do hope so. He deserves it. Just his performance in the playoffs is unbelievable. A sub-2 ERA in the playoffs. Oh, I love Kyle Hendricks. He's probably my favorite pitcher on the Cubs. But anyway, let's talk about Game 7 specifically, and then we'll move on to the end of this podcast because we could talk about the Cubs for hours, and we probably will eventually. But looking at Game 7, you go in. You jump out, Dexter Fowler right away. Home run. Kicks off the World Series with a bang. You're up 1-0. You feel fantastic.
I was so excited.
You build a lead. You're up 3-1. You're up 5-1. And suddenly, Kyle Hendricks in the 4th inning with 2 outs walks the guy. And this is where you can be very critical on Joe Mann, which I will probably agree with you.
But was it a walk? Because it was a strikeout.
And that changed the entire course of the game. Because if he strikes him out there in that situation,
we're heading to the next inning. He comes out
Hendricks
clean.
starts in the 5th. There's no debate about it. But we saw Mann quickly pull the trigger as soon as a guy gets on base. But hold on, Ricky. So we have Kyle Hendricks walking the guy, and this is where you be constructive about Joe Mann's ability to manage, because he lost the managerial battle. He was a bad manager in that game. He was. You bring in Lester, who, first of all, you said you weren't going to.
That's what I was going to bring up.
Right.
You wanted him to be clean, but then you give him dirty guys on with a man on first.
And then he just didn't do what he said he was going to do with John Lester, and that's what Joe Mann was thinking. So then you put Lester in the spot, and you know what? He was pitching okay, and then the wild pitch. First, you had the inherited runner, and then the little tapper by Kipnis. Ross just entered the game cold, right in the middle of an inning with 2 outs.
Make that throw, we're out of the inning.
Couldn't get a grip on the ball, throws it down the line, 2nd and 3rd, gets out of play. And then wild pitch, looks like David Ross has another concussion, that poor freaking 39-year-old man. And they score 2 runs off the play, and then all of a sudden it's a new ball game.
I love Papa Ross. Of
course.
It's funny watching that where the ball hits him in the face, he falls over.
Yeah, no, I know. You felt it. But then it was 6-3. And the Cubs were cruising. There's a little bit of a lull there in the middle innings.
But how did it get to 6-3?
Well, that's a big point. Javi Baez coming through in the clutch with a home run after having 2 errors in this game, and he was clutch defensively all season, all postseason, and really in the playoffs he struggled. To be honest with you, in all facets, 2 errors is uncharacteristic for Javi Baez in 3 weeks, and he had it in 1 game. It was just, I don't know what he was thinking on that bare hand. But anyway, you move on, 6-3. Then Lester's cruising. You feel good about John Lester. And with 2 outs in the 8th inning, they're 4 outs away, Ricky, from winning the World Series. 4 outs.
You left out one thing, though. I want to.
Go ahead, please do.
How to get to 6-3? Papa Ross with the solo shot.
Oh, was it Papa Ross?
It was Papa Ross with the solo shot, man.
What was it? So it was Javi getting it to 5-1?
It was, so we got up 3-1 after the Contreras double. Then Baez made it 4-1. Then Rizzo singled, made it 5-1.
That's what it was. Okay, there's so much happening. I forget off the top of my head.
Kipnis had that little wild pitch thing. They scored. And then when it was 5-3, Ross homered in the 6th.
And that's what it was. That's what it was. I can't believe
because I was setting up for it, and I'm like, wait, whoa, you got to bring up Papa homering in his this is Ross's last game. This is it. All postseason. I know I was the one throwing out there. Well, if we don't win it all, we could just offer him $5 million and he'll come back. He ain't coming back now. You walk out as a champion. You walk out on top. That's what you do.
So of course. Yeah, bring in Chapman, who there's this controversy where you bring him in the day before, you have him throw 20 pitches, and some say it was unnecessary, but I think differently, and they're saying that
you went and got him for this reason.
Yeah, and they said it looked like he was just dead, really. He was struggling. He lost his stamina. He was pumping 98.
But you have to admire, this game, I admire Aroldis Chapman. I do. Because after that eighth inning, where he gives up the 3 runs to tie the game, giving up a home run to Rajai Davis, who would have fucking thought Rajai Davis would be the one to hit that home run? Aroldis Chapman said, I'm going out there for the 9th. And he got the pitch the 9th.
Yeah, well.
Got through it in the 9th. It was, to me, I was honestly watching it going, why the fuck is he in this game? He just gave up a tie, but just that alone to say, you know what? I want to give it everything I got.
He got through it. I was worried big time. I was sweating the entire time. He got through the 9th inning, and I felt like the Cubs had a chance. And with the part of their lineup that was coming up in the 10th inning, I felt like that was it. If they can make something happen here, they're going to win the World Series.
You had Schwarber, you had Bryant, you had Rizzo, you had Zobrist. You had the best players on this team coming up all in a row.
Russell and then Montero eventually. Excuse me. And then you have this situation where all of a sudden, here comes the rain, right? After this explosive 8th inning where they tied the game, they get through the 9th inning, and here comes the rain. Rain delay, extra innings. Oh,
I was worried. Oh. I thought that it was going to end, like we were going to call it. We were going to be playing baseball right now as we're recording this.
Ben Zobrist.
I want to get to that, but before we do, because I heard something on the Cap show about that just fucking gave me goosebumps.
Please
today.
Share.
Before I get to that though, the biggest
and we'll end it on this.
The biggest thing in the 10th inning, Miguel Montero. I mean, yeah, after the Zobrist hit, we took the lead, but Montero coming in, the only hit he had all postseason was that grand slam. Comes in cold off the bench, boom, base hit, puts us up by 2. Virtually, that could be seen as the winning run because we did give one up.
It was the winning run.
We did give one up to Rajai Davis again. Geyer and Davis kind of hitting us 1-2 in the bottom of the 10th. But when I was listening to Cap and Company today, they were talking about the Zobrist hit. And I guess what was going on at that time, there was the rain delay while the players are in the weight room giving the rah-rah speech from Jason Hayward. Zobrist's wife, Juliana, the baby started crying. She had to go under the grandstand to kind of feed the baby. And as she's doing that, the rain stopped. And they're like, come on, Ben's going to be up, Ben's going to be up. I guess she took off her heels to race up the stairs, just hands the kid to somebody that they were with, and she didn't even sit in her seat. She was standing there on the concourse, and Zobrist fouls that one ball off where he was just staying alive. It went sideways, and he looks back into the stands and makes eye contact with her and just gives her a nod, and boom, base hit, takes the lead.
Wins the MVP.
Wins us the World Series. I heard that, and I was like, holy shit, those are the moments that you want.
There are so many of those in this story of the Chicago Cubs.
To just look and make eye contact with your wife, give that head nod, and then boom.
This team is immortal right now. The players on this team will be remembered forever.
You wouldn't have seen this last year. Wouldn't have seen it last year.
That's why I said, going back to this offseason, all the pieces were in place for this year for it to happen.
Before the offseason, Cub fans, last year, I know it hurt. Last year needed to happen for this to happen. Because I look at this Indians team, I look at Kluber, and then I can't remember. It was Bauer or Tomlin, whichever one got to us. I want to say it was Tomlin who pitched the 1-0 game against Hendricks.
Yeah.
That was the closest thing this postseason that we've seen to the fucking studs we saw with the Mets last year, where we couldn't hit a single thing. But we got through it this year. You want to know why? Because A, we were a better team this year, but also we've seen it before. We've been through it before. And last year's team wouldn't have fought back down.
It's a combination
1-3 than this
of
one.
Multiple things, and you make a good point. I mean, just the veteran leadership across the board. You have the great at-bats put together across the board. The fact that they just don't stop until the final out is recorded.
It doesn't hurt that some balls bounce the right way for us.
And you know what? That doesn't happen.
Like the outfield miscue.
That doesn't happen to the Chicago Cubs. And it happened this year, Ricky.
Yep.
We can finally say, as Chicago Cubs fans, our team is world champions. And this is just unprecedented.
I wish I would have had money to go to the games, because from what I hear from people that went is when you were in the stadium, no matter who was up, some people were cheering, but in those tense moments, everybody was tense because both these franchises, the Cubs and the Indians, it's Murphy's Law for us. Whatever could go wrong does go wrong for us.
Unbelievable job by this 2016 Chicago Cubs team. You talk about the expectations of a club who has it all laid upon them from the start, and they came through over and over and over again, and they end up with a ring. John Lackey got his ring. John Lester got his ring. All of these, oh my gosh. This is just such a great story. The Chicago Cubs are world champions, Ricky. The Chicago Cubs are world champions.
It hasn't sunk in. It has not sunk in.
I hope you all enjoyed this edition, this special edition, this World Series Championship edition of Behind the Pen. Ricky Widmer, it was a pleasure. Mr. Cub fan.
I had to be on for
absolutely,
this one.
Absolutely.
We had to do this.
I could just talk to you guys for hours. But it's so nice to experience it with someone who's as passionate about a team as the other guy. So. And
the one thing I'm going to correct, John, you said John Lester, World Series champion. You forgot 3-time World Series champion John Lester.
No, I know. But I'm saying I was speaking in terms of free agents who signed with the Cubs who were coming here to win a championship for the Cubs. I'm sorry. Same with Ben Zobrist and Jason Hayward.
The cursed pitcher, because he's done it with 2 fronts now.
He's a legend. He's a legend. It's established that Theo Epstein. Bow down to Theo, guys.
And Theo we trust.
Thank you all for listening to this World Series edition of Chicago Cubs Talk on Behind the Pen. We're going to probably talk about some more things and stuff next week, but for this week, we get to celebrate like it's 1908, except with technology and things that doesn't suck. Anyway, final thoughts. Become a Patreon, patreon.com/most valuable podcast. Entertain you more so than we already do. If you give us a couple bucks, it'd be awesome. Subscribe to a YouTube channel. You'll probably hear me talk about the Cubs even more so than I already do. Right? You can listen to Sean Anderson talk about whatever he talks about. He talks about lots of stuff. Talk about Ricky Widmer and his stupid-ass Vikings who suck. And whatever. Everybody else here at MVP, we love you guys. Thank you for listening to Behind the Pen. We'll be back next week for more stuff and things. Till then, we will see you all next time.
That my dude, Mike Rankin, right there. That my dude.
Thank you for listening to this MVP podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Most Valuable Pod for more great podcasts.